Hi everyone, this is your host again, Neha, and welcome back to the Audio Bites podcast.
Hey.
We have Syifa Adriana with us today. Super excited. Hi Syifa.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
So this isn't your first time in Nepal, right? I'm guessing.
Yeah. This is my third.
Yeah, so is it different experience altogether every time you visit Nepal?
Of course. I think when it comes to first experience, it was always about traveling, first impressions, and everything became so nice because everything was new.
Yes.
But then when you start changing the idea of living and you start to actually change the mindset of staying and then looking for different things that you would not need it when you were traveling, it's changing. But still, it's the country that I feel most grounded so far. So far. But I guess because, I don't know, one person said to me that probably because you look like everyone, you feel belong.
Yes.
Because in many countries, when you travel, you feel like it's nice, but you don't feel deeper connection with that place. Yeah. But with Nepal, I think because other than the fact that I have developed friendship with other people, but it's a place that I just want to be in. It's not my favorite when it comes to the dust. True. I think like everyone's complaining about that. But still, I think that feeling. It's my friends are asking like, what is it about Kathmandu, or just in general, even though I'm not really based in Kathmandu center, but what is it? Why Nepal of all other places? And it's difficult to explain sometimes because it's not always about the tangible stuff of what you can tell, right?
Yeah, some things just can't be explained.
Yeah,
I guess.
that's true.
Yeah. So you're a traveler. Yeah.
Yeah, if that's an identity, because I don't know what to call myself as.
But I guess traveler will do. For
now.
Yeah.
I've started traveling since 2013, but 2014 was the first time I set abroad myself. So some sort. It's been more than. It's something that always makes me feel like at home, if that makes sense. Because when I'm at home, it feels like holiday now, if that makes sense. When I was in Jakarta, it feels like I was having my own holiday. But when I'm traveling and on the move, it feels like that's just my normality.
Yeah. So like, have you always been like this ever since you can remember? You know what I mean? Like, I think for me, traveling is, I guess, everything uncomfortable. If you have to look at it from one particular angle, then it is in some ways, right? Since you have to, in a way, come out of your comfort zone and then dive into something that's very unfamiliar to you, right? So, are you always on a high when you're traveling? Because for me, I think it's the I feel bland at times, you know. If I may say so, most times, you know what I mean. So. Does it always keep you on
like
a high?
Hyper vigilant, right? Right. I think like the idea of travel has developed over time for me. In the beginning, it was like coming from Asian society. I think we know that traveling is perceived to be a luxury.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to the idea of even being on a plane, it's something that is not an essential thing to do in life. And I've never been actually introduced to the idea because my parents, neither of them actually have been on an airplane.
Yes.
So for me, the idea of like, what is it even as traveling? It was a very foreign idea until I think I joined Couchsurfing. So this is like an online platform for travelers in which you can meet a lot of different travelers from throughout the world. And when I was in Jakarta, I remembered I would search every different travelers who are traveling to Jakarta and send messages to them, like saying, would you be willing to meet and everything? Because at that point, I didn't have the financial capacity yet to even travel. So by meeting these people and hearing their firsthand stories, were making it very it normalized the story. And then from hearing all that, it starts to introduce, I was starting to get introduced to the idea of traveling, and more so than just a holiday, that people are able to do travel nonstop, right? But then it it was a fantasy sort of, because when you get to a real idea, you start to think about financial aspect of it, right?
True, so true. Yeah.
So I think I what I can always remember is I never feel like I was belong in Jakarta.
Yeah.
I never felt like that's the place that I want to be. That's the place that I feel the most comfortable. I mean, yeah, I have friends, of course. I grew up with everything that is, but there's something that I always felt like I was missing about. And like I've always wanted to go abroad, but I didn't know about traveling. So in the past, what I was thinking was getting a scholarship, studying abroad and everything. But then when I first started to be introduced to traveling idea, then I start like as if the window has just opened, or there's other way of seeing the world. So then I remember the first time I went abroad, because I used to have a Singaporean ex-boyfriend, and then I thought, I think it would be nice to be in Singapore for the first time, and also go out of Indonesia for the first time. But then we broke up before I went. It's so funny. That kind of love story. But then I remember I was so afraid of going. The idea of going to a new place, not knowing anyone, it scares me a lot. And Singapore is not known to be the most affordable place, right? So I was like, how am I able to afford this? And how am I going to do this not knowing anyone? So through Couchsurfing, I was able to look for local hosts. So people who are willing to spare their space for me to stay. So it also saves me from spending money on accommodation. That idea alone, I think traveling in a bigger sphere starts from when you're at home, right? It challenges your idea of how are you going to do about this? And then so far up until now, I feel like I don't know. Now, if I'm thinking about the difference being at home and then on traveling, if I'm always like that, I don't think I'm always like that. But I learn as I go along, and then eventually there is no sense of definition anymore between being at home, extra vigilant on the road, in the different countries. You're sort of continually adapting to different cultures, and then it just becomes natural.
So it becomes a habit over
it becomes
time.
a habit. I think it's just also sort of a skill that you have to, because sometimes I think it's a very glamorous idea of traveling full time, right? I get a lot of messages, people saying like, how am I able to do traveling as a profession? Like, how am I able to do what you're doing? But there's so much more than just that, because when you travel full time, the downside of being exposed to new things all the time is that
it's scary.
It is scary,
it's
and it's tiring. Because you would like to have that place of belonging and also a routine that you know the language, you understand the language, you don't feel out of place. You want to have you know where to go, and you want to look for a special coffee or this food and that food, right? So I think along the way I learned that's why I don't travel fast, and I don't get the idea of travel fast, because I think even for me, the third time being in Nepal, I slowly get into the culture. And each time when I was in Nepal, I would be here more than a month to 3 months. So in itself, it's you're slowly immersing yourself in the culture. But there are areas that are more extremely intense than other places. Like there are destinations that are more intense than other places. Nepal is sort of quite okay.
So just right now, when you talked about the Asian culture, you know, I think we all have been brought upon with the idea that, you know, it's important to save. You know what I mean? Saving up. You know, that's what. That's how we have been brought up, right? So, do you, with your, you know, travel blogs and then interviews like this, do you intend to, you know, bring certain changes in that aspect, like, I think that we have to be more exposed to the world and just not confine ourselves in four walls, sort of.
That's true. I think the idea of, I remember the first couple of years when I was traveling, I had that sense of guilt so much because spending money on my own, spending money on myself, and there's always this perceive of you should spend money for your family, helping out your parents. Especially I'm the first daughter, first kid, anything like that. Oh, right? Like it's never.
So much guilt
it's
tripping.
always
Oh my God,
been it's always been, there's this sense of moral responsibility that you carry, and it's as if like especially as a female, like. You can't do anything because you're not a male. I remember my dad would say, "Don't come home for too late."
Yeah.
But then my brother would be okay to come home at 3 a.m. I'm like, what's the difference? Just because you're a female. And so that idea has always been carried upon in society, in which also with the idea of financial aspect, it's always been the idea of. I think we're coming from the idea of what is it called? Not abundance, like as if like you're never gonna have enough money for your life. And I think coming out, I mean, right now I'm becoming better, but it's always been a struggle for me to even think about financial aspect because it always gives me a sense of anxiety.
Yeah, I guess we all do.
That's true because it's like when you spend, you feel so guilty.
Yes.
It's always. You're brought up into the idea, right? So it's the idea of poverty. It's so interesting because I later realized that it's so much about the mindset than the actual money. Because when I used to live in China and I earned so much more than what I needed, the poverty mindset didn't change. It took me some time to allow myself to take taxi and not feeling guilty. Because I would feel like, oh, you're not saving money. You should not do this. Right now, it's even more actually because with the idea of traveling, you're actually spending more. But I don't know. And especially I think because a lot of the time traveling has always been portrayed by the Western society. Yeah,
it's very luxury.
It is. And the way they travel is mostly like very convenient. And when they say cheap, it's $20 per night. That you can do less than that. And for me, coming up from this idea, I think it's always been more than just how much do you spend on traveling. And I think having limitation of financial aspect to it challenged me. How do I travel better? But it doesn't always have to be about spending more.
Yes.
And I think that's how I knew about couch surfing because I was not able to pay for my own accommodation when I first started traveling. I mean, I was able to, but I wouldn't be able to afford for a longer period of time. So then when you are limited with certain ideas or certain financial aspect, then you are challenged to do. How are you going to sustain this idea? I mean, to be fair, it's important to have safety net, not to just like quit and travel. I think that's very cliche. But at the same time, I think the aspect of traveling is,
I think, like having said all of that, I think I'm quite impressed with the millennials today. Given, they're quite exposed and they're quite open to traveling and trying new adventures and coming out of their comfort zone and all of that. I think it's very impressive that way. But with the kind of I don't know, career, job, whatever you're doing right now, it's very motivating to a lot of people.
You know, so I don't know.
It is, yes. Because I envy that so much.
That's the thing. I think a lot of people said within this industry, they would say, I would like to inspire you to travel. And for me, I'd never have that kind of mindset. I started off by sharing what I feel and how I... when you travel alone, you have so much space for yourself. And then it allows you to think and reflect. And sometimes through that, I would write something. I would share something. And so that's how I even started my blogging, quote unquote, even before YouTube. So I started my idea of blogging on Facebook, actually. And then I started to do videos because I think it will portray better visualization in terms of traveling. But I guess I think it's true and not true because these days with this kind of travel with social media, it's so saturated. right?
It's true.
They're so you can actually be quite. I hate the word of influencer, right?
Yeah.
Like, who are you to influence anyone? To be fair, I really don't like that idea. But what people are trying so hard to be one.
Yeah.
So they are trying to look posh, and all of the photo on Instagram to look certain way, and everything looks the same. What we sort of forget is that when you travel, it's not only about destination. The aspect of certain country is not only about the destination. Let's say what people know about Nepal is only Everest, and that's why when I was going to Nepal, I was like, I want to portray something more than just the mountain. First, I can't afford trekking Everest, but I mean, I feel like there must be something more than just that. And there's always been the idea of travel deeper, sense of traveling and exploring, but also when you try to share a bit of yourself, of your journey, people can relate to that. And I think that's what make quote unquote being a travel whatever influencer is more sustainable, instead of thinking that you are the sort of celebrity and with your friends. I think there's a gap to that. I don't like that aspect.
And I think it has worked on your part, especially because you don't really sit down and plan to, really influence and inspire people that way. You know what I mean? It's very unintentional, and it's very subconsciously. It comes very, I don't know, organically to you. So I think that is why, like, people like us could really, look up to you and be inspired by what you do. Yeah, it's true.
No, because I think because I went full time on YouTube last year, right? And I'm always constantly evaluating my own content. Like, what sort of things do I want to show? Is it so much? Because I do travel way before I'm exposed to social media. So the idea of traveling has always been, but since I first got to introduce the idea, it's always like, it feels really me. And then with the idea of YouTube and social media, fame, numbers, this influence my own travel and changes the way probably how I travel and how I perceive about traveling. And then I'm also constantly evaluating, what do I want to show? Because do I want to really show the polished version of traveling, that kind of comfort, but that's never been my kind of travel. And then I think starting a bit earlier this year, when there's this one day, I do remember I was about going to shoot film sort of must visit in that place. I remember riding motorbike, and it was already hot and everything, and I got there and I was crying, because I'm like, this is not me, this is not what I want to do. So I canceled that filming day, and I talked to myself, like, what sort of things that I really value. Because creating videos, anything, it's something like art, right? You have to believe in something that you're doing.
True,
and you're not, and more than anything, it's not so much like, with myself, the brand is me. So if I pretend to be someone else, why
would you want to do that?
And it doesn't last that very long, and people can sense fakeness, no?
They can.
People
That's
are
what I
becoming
say.
smarter, of course. And why do I need to be something just to gain views? I mean, views is nice, of course, but there's so much more than that. And so I changed the approach, and even when I'm editing, you can tell when you are filming and presenting, when you're not really feeling the thing that you're doing, it doesn't transfer that energy, right? But when you're really enjoying that, you can sense the energy, and then the viewers understand that too. And no matter what you're doing, they also enjoy that, because there's a sense of aspect, and also your personality. They watch you because they feel like you're relatable and everything. So if that makes sense.
So do you think, like, we need more people? I don't know. I think you get very awkward when I do this, but people like you more in in the business, just to, I don't know, like, prove a point that you don't really have to settle down to
certain normality.
To a conventional, I guess, a career path, or not necessarily a career path. You know what I mean? But and still be able to survive and sustain through it. Or you know what I mean?
That's true.
The sense of nonconformity. You know what I mean? Do you think?
I mean, I wish there are more Asian women.
True.
Because talking about female, there are already female creators on YouTube industry, for example.
A lot of them.
A lot of them are from Western society,
yeah.
but women are mostly in beauty industry and everything like that, which is okay. I love makeup and whatever.
Yeah, I love
but
it too,
but traveling per se, traveling alone, traveling solo, especially in Asia, I haven't found, like, probably there's one or two, but the ones that I can relate to, there are not enough. I think because first, the idea of coming from Asian society, right? Before even becoming a quote unquote travel blogger, before even travel, you have to do everything to divide yourself from the normality, and it is as if like you are being a bad girl, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, so much sense,
Because
especially when it comes
like
to our Asian,
you feel so bad about being yourself, and and I remember thinking of be yourself is actually never be yourself in an Asian society, in many society. I think as I was speaking a lot more about this to other people, and this happens a lot in Western society too, when you live under other people's expectation and wishes, and you carry that throughout your life, and thinking that I don't have any choices, right? Of course, there must be conflict that comes out of living your own choices, right? But what is life if you don't if you don't live
on your own choices?
And on your own terms? Because first, it's never been about that destination, right? It's always been about the journey. As cliche as it sounds, because you would never think that every second you're actually changing. Because like right now, I feel like sounds very weird, but I'm living my own dreams. Okay, that then. But then how do I make it sustainable? It's no longer a dream then. Okay. So there's always been, dream is always been a dream if you never actually do something about it. So many people want to do this and that, and of course I can't speak from only from my understanding, even though I have this responsibility, financial responsibility to family, but there is way to do it. You just work harder than the hustle. The hustle is sort of like harder than normal life, I think.
But do you like you said, when you're living your dream, you have to also simultaneously take the idea of sustainability. How do I survive together, right? So then, is there a conflict of sort, in the sense that it's like I'm living my dream, but then it's not really that fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. It is.
Does it come across?
Oh, of course. It's actually, I think there's a lot of fantasy and romanticized idea of full-time travel work, and you get to explore and then do this all the time. Like for example, on YouTube, what people don't know is that you are putting your own money to create before actually you're earning money.
Yes.
And even when you're earning money, you're actually putting more money.
Yes.
It's like a business that you're investing, right? To even grow to a point where it's sustainable and you have to have more financial independence, it takes so much time. And then if you're not patient enough to be where you want to be, then you can never make it. And traveling full time sounds very romantic, but to be honest, when you're actually doing it, it feels boring. Because it becomes a routine, like being in a new country again, and then setting up a new SIM card, and then having to get to a point from A to B, not knowing how to go there, having to always research, having to always find where do you need to sleep, right? And then this idea of sense of home, of comfort, and not having to figure out where to go or to sleep becomes a luxury. And I think we take that for granted.
We do.
We take that for granted. I learned that when I set out my full-time travel for the first time in 2016, how I remembered I traveled for intense 2 weeks in Myanmar, and I felt so tired. I felt like this is the very first time I felt I didn't enjoy traveling.
Yeah.
But then it was because that was my very first time moving a lot so much, the idea of that. And then now I'm tweaking my own travel because I'm working for myself. I have my own time and liberty to decide. But also I have to be smart in business wise.
Yes.
How do I still keep earning money? But also putting money back to that creation, because then if you want to grow but you don't want to give something from your own, I think it's difficult.
Yeah, it can be very difficult.
It is. Yeah. No, because a lot of people say, "Oh, I want to do YouTube." YouTube is sort of like what people want to do, but there's a sense of thinking, I will earn something, but I don't want to put my own financial aspect to it, or time or dedication, whatever. And I think we can have workshop on YouTube. Yeah. That's from a sense of creator aspect. Yeah.
What is
Did I
this?
answer?
Sorry?
I don't know. Sorry,
No, it's
I
okay.
talk a lot. I don't know if I ever answered.
I think it's okay because I feel like we both are all over the place.
That's true.
But I really want to ask you this.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
is
yeah.
this semi-nomadic lifestyle travelers live, they say? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Right. Nomadic
What-
lifestyle.
Yeah, what is
it?
this? Yeah.
So nomadic lifestyle is that people who are able to work without having to be at certain places. They are location independent. Like, for example, I can be wherever I am, wherever I want, as long as I have internet to be able to keep publishing videos. So, for example, in my past career, when I used to work for a certain organization, I had to be in Jakarta, right?
Yeah,
I had to be in my hometown because I needed my physical appearance in Jakarta. But right now, I don't have to be. I don't, like, for example, I filmed my travel in Sri Lanka already back in August, so I have all of stocks of film that I can edit. And when editing, I don't have to be in Sri Lanka. I don't have to be in Jakarta. I can be whenever I want to be. And in a sense, it's a privilege. But also at the same time, it's a liberty that allows me to appreciate small things like that as well. So yeah, that's there are so many nomadic lifestyle that people pursue because as long as you have job that pays the bill and that doesn't require you to be somewhere, a certain place, certain city, then you're served nomadic.
Nomadic.
I mean, because the liberty
Why did
comes.
I ask you this? I don't know.
Because it's very it's becoming more and more. A lot of millennials, quote unquote, are following this lifestyle.
Yeah,
so
they are.
Because they want to have that liberty as well. But a lot of the times, the downside of people who jump into this lifestyle is that they
can't survive.
Yeah, they can't survive financially. So before what I would suggest, it's like you have to have financial safety saving net before transitioning to this lifestyle. And you have to have certain skill that you can offer to do work online. I mean, YouTube is one of them, but for example, web developing or design or anything like that, it's available abundantly.
I think most today, at least today, the most young people, when they try and pursue this, so to say, nomadic lifestyle, I think it's mostly, it comes from a place where they really want to have the freedom to themselves.
That's
what I
true.
mean?
Yeah.
Given the Asian community and the way we're brought up in. I think it's sort of liberating in some ways.
That's true.
For
That
them.
is liberating.
And I think they just have to, I don't, like you said, sit down and plan for it. You know what I mean? Rather than just jumping into it.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
true.
Not
You
having
have
to
to be
survive.
still practical, and I think that's what a lot
Yeah.
of message that are quite wrong and
Yeah.
saying, I quit
Yeah.
my job and travel.
That's
and
very
everything.
movie-like.
That
You know
is,
what I mean?
yeah,
It
that
only
is not
happens in
realistic
movies.
because I saved up
Yeah.
and I traveled and then I volunteered and then it only lasted me for quite some time and then I moved to China to earn more. So people think, how do you earn money? And so there's more than just quit job and travel. I think, So
Syifa, as a female traveler, what are the challenges that you've been facing, or what the challenges you think that's
Right.
very difficult to, like, I don't know, maneuver into?
Yeah. You're always a little bit more hyper vigilant than being a male, I guess.
Yeah.
When you're alone and when males are helping you out, you're always questioning if this is true, or if there is genuine,
What's the intention?
I think that's also a sense of self-security. You're trying to protect yourself, but along the way sometimes you just can sense, because you're along the way when you travel a lot and meet a lot of different people, new people, your instincts becoming sharper. But also I think more than ever you're more likely to have unpleasant experience in terms of sexual harassment and everything. It's real, of course. What else? That's the reality, of course. But it's not to say that it's not safe to travel alone. Of course, there are a lot of precautions. There are many things to prevent yourself from experience such things, but there are also things that is so out of your control. Of course, you can't never control anything when you travel. The easiest way that I would say being a female traveler is to dress modestly. What is modest? It's very difficult when we talk about that, because certain society have different standard to it, right? But then I would suggest
cover yourself up.
Not so much like that, but just off shoulder and just enough knee length. Because if we are speaking in Asian society, right? But also because a lot of religious areas, they would ask you to cover yourself up. I don't agree with the idea per se, but that's just the reality.
That's the reality.
I mean, even for me, I'm already full covered. Sometimes I still feel like being stared at, and it doesn't feel as comfortable. And perhaps stairs are not always been the worst case, because it could be probably out of curiosity or anything. But
but then it's still not curiosity when you're literally
that's
staring at people.
That's true. That's why I like trying to dress up the way how the local dress. I know some areas would be hotter than your home country, but then again, you are visiting to a certain country, certain destination that you are trying. That's how you become a traveler. You respect someone else's culture.
So you're more mindful of the.
Of course, be mindful is one of the key. I think a lot of the time when we talk about traveling, people think that the preparation always comes from financial aspect. But so much of that I learned from like being mindful, like surrender, because you can, like, if you're so used to controlling everything in your travel, you'll be so frustrated because everything is out of your control. And when you are already learning the pattern of traveling, and then being in nomadic movement, and then learning of how to be surrender of things that is out of your expectation, then you start to understand the pattern of it, and then you start to enjoy that. And then because the first layer of excitement of traveling is meeting new people, enjoying new culture, and enjoying new food. But after quite some time, it becomes a normality, and it becomes a routine, and then what? You know. So I think what I'm trying to portray is also on my platform is that there is more than just meeting new people and trying food and it's more than just beautiful photos. There's always low point of life, of course, especially in your travels in a foreign lands that you don't speak the language. You feel so vulnerable more than anything. And I want to be truthful about that, because I think it's important to give this message in the wave of whatever Instagram or YouTube kind of travel.
It's so deep.
I think because it becomes deeper, because I feel like if traveling is a school, I would have paid so much for that because it teaches me so much more,
true.
But then it's never been a quick process as everything.
Yeah, I think, and it's 10 times more work for us as females, you know.
Of course.
Yeah, especially when it comes to traveling and all of that. I don't think a man have to.
Sometimes
it might be such a generic. I mean, I'm not trying to generalize or whatsoever, but then it's still, I guess, a lot easier for a man to just, backpack and then.
That's true.
Yeah, for
that's
us,
true.
It's a lot
that's
of thinking.
That's why when I see like people traveling or everything to places that are a little bit more conventional, I would think that, okay, if that's a male, I don't know if that's the same case if a girl would travel. I don't know how the reality would be. So, but then again, of course, if the representation of that female is Western female, it doesn't always transcends the same case to Asian female.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's also.
I feel like somehow we belong to everyone, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the idea of women of color and things like that, there's like when you watch a certain video of a place and then you think that, oh, that's how I would get treated as, but then the one that you're watching is kind of different than how you look. I don't think that's always been the best representation. It can be in somewhat way, but sometimes unfair treatment still happens in this world. So that's just the way how it is. And sometimes when you travel so much, the downside of it is that you become very pragmatic. Yeah. Because you've experienced.
That's a nice thing, right?
No, it is. Yeah.
What is the most craziest thing you've done so far in your travel? If you have any. I bet you have.
I think in the first years of my travel, I remember the first time I went motorbiking in Vietnam.
So cool.
Yeah. And it was, I remember in 2015, I rode motorbike and I felt like, oh my God, this was so me. And then again, I did motorbiking and the last time earlier this year, I think it was in April, I did motorbiking again. It was nice and it was sort of the favorite thing I do, but it wasn't as challenging as it was again. So now I would question myself, like, what would be the next challenge? I don't know, but at the same time, it's not always that kind of adventurous style. Because I went to Sri Lanka a few months ago and I felt like, oh, it's a joyful experience and it's lovely. The people are so helpful. So it became very easy for a solo traveler to travel around. But then I felt like it was too easy for me. Because then I think, why? And so I thought, oh, probably I should stop traveling around this area of continent. I should challenge more to be in an area that is farther, that is different than my own culture. Because at this point I feel like I have gathered quite enough experiences to travel alone and to travel to different places, because the way how you survive is pretty much the same. So the next challenge would be how different that is to your own, that challenge your own sort of normality and moral issues and whatever.
But then do you feel under pressure in the sense that you've done so much already, you know?
I don't think I don't. I think,
to be fair, that's because you've done so much already. I think it's a lot for me to, take what you've done. But is it a pressure? As in, like, what if I reach to a point where I find nothing challenging anymore? Nothing, gives me that sense of rush in me.
Right.
Sort of thing,
I don't think that, because I think, and that's the creative part of, that's where YouTube comes, I think. Now with YouTube, it allows me to challenge even further myself from a perspective of creating a content that is just not about me visiting places. What is it? What is aspect that I want to bring out? I don't think there will be any point of me of feeling like it's challenging, because to be fair, staying at one place can be also challenging.
It can be.
Yeah, from a perspective of a traveler that always have this travel bug and wants to go anywhere and always wants to go somewhere, and you don't really appreciate the things that you already have. That can be also challenging. So I think there's a sense of, if you take the idea of challenge in a deeper sense, there will always be a factor. My biggest aim as of now is like to ride motorbike in Central Asia. One day, I don't know. I mean, that's still a dream, because when I start researching, it becomes really sort of painful thing to know how difficult the process and everything. But it's nice to have a dream, no? It gives you sense of hope.
Yeah, it does.
It does.
So I think we've come to the end now, I guess.
I talk so much.
No, we need people who talk a lot.
I can be my own host. No, I think that's why I agreed to come to the podcast, because
we're so grateful for that.
No, thank you so much as well. I think because when creating videos, I can't be too deep sometimes, because if it's too deep and stuff, and then you become so open, not all people are willing to accept that. No people are ready to be in that state, and not all people are in that state. So having a platform to be able to talk more than just what is your favorite country? That's the question I get. I'm like, is that all? You know, is that all in life? Is that all what you travel, or is that all what you seek for? And that's why having this platform, it allows me to speak for more than myself. I wouldn't be able to have this kind of conversation on my own platform. People are not interested because it's not fun and flashy, you know. So thank you. That's
thank you so much for being here with us, Syifa.
Thank you.
It was wonderful talking to you.
It is wonderful as well. Likewise. Thank you so much.
Yay.
What's that?
What's that? Oh yeah. It's not ended yet. Yeah, wait.
Is that earrings?
Wait. We're not done. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This one's from Astitwa Nepal, right? Yeah, Astitwa Nepal. What do they do? What do they do?
Basically, they gather burn victim survivors, and they actually make these things.
Oh wow! What kind of survivors? Sorry.
Burn
survivors.
Yeah, BVSs. Yeah. So they make all this pretty earrings, so you can try it.
Yeah, and they basically taken them for employment.
Oh
yes.
Wow, that looks so pretty.
So this is for you, and even I have something for you.
That's so kind. I like earrings.
Okay, this is a voucher for you and him.
My partner.
Yeah, your partner. Come over to my restaurant. Eat Takali with me.
Yeah, we got free dinner. That would be nice. Yes, thank you so much. Oh, this is not necessary, but yes, I'll take it. Thank you.
So now we're done.
We're done. Can I say the ending?
Yeah, please do it.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and watch. I hope you get something out of this conversation. I hope it at least not inspires. That's very overused word. It enlightens you. It sparks a joy or something. Yeah. Anyway.
So yeah, thank you so much everyone for tuning
Thank
in.
you.
We'll catch you all on the next episode.
Bye. Yay, thank you.
This headphone was painful.
Oh, really? Do I talk a lot?
No, because of that.
It's just the sound.
Sound of my voice talking non-stop about this deep travel.
Because this thing is not working. So this is the only one that's working. So I was at some point I was confused. I was like, am I deaf or something?
Don't really work.